We believe the Oklahoma Sooners defense is going to be fixed by the transfer portal additions. We'll talk why on this edition of Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button over there and hit that notification bell to know when new episodes drop. My name is John Williams. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. My buddy here is Josh Helmer. You can follow him on Twitter at JoshOnRef. You can also hear him Monday through Friday from 9 to noon on 94.7 The Ref in Norman. And Josh, we're in that part of the season where the spring ball is going, but we're also kind of getting some 2023 outlooks, just thoughts. And our guy, Shehan Jeyarajah over at CBS Sports, put out a list of the questions that he still has regarding the Big 12 teams. Shehan, a Baylor alum, covers the Big 12 very well, about as well as anybody. Go read the work over there at cbssports.com. But about the Oklahoma Sooners, he asks, can the transfer portal additions fix the defense?
Let's hope so, right? I don't know. I don't know if the answer is yes or no, but let's hope so as Oklahoma media and fans. But as we look at this thing, as we break it down, I think Shehan Jeyarajah probably nailed it. And maybe the other part of that would be, can these signees step right in and help Oklahoma and fix the defense? So, but probably more so the transfers, right? Because you're talking about older guys that have been in collegiate systems. Physically, they're ready. Not that there aren't several of these defensive signees, John, that physically might be ready to play, but just generally speaking, we know all of the transfer portal additions in that regard. Physically, they're ready to go. They played college football, so it's more likely that they're going to be the ones that fix this defense for Oklahoma. I expect Oklahoma to be better. Absolutely. I mean, look, you look at the numbers out there, and I hear your comments right now. Well, it can't be much worse, and you would be right. But I look for Oklahoma to be markedly improved because you're talking about year two in Brent Venables' defense, running the show now in Norman in his second stint, obviously this stint as the head football coach, John, and his track record tells us that under his tutelage, defenses get better in years 2, 3, and beyond. So I'm hoping that even just some of the guys like a Danny Stutzman, like a Bowman, and probably there's some other names that you could throw at me that they continue to grow. And then, yes, I think the other question is how much and how quickly do these transfer portal additions impact things for Oklahoma? Because if the answer is a large margin, then we could be talking about Oklahoma doing special things that folks want to see in 2023.
I do think you hit the nail on the head a little bit on the second-year starter guys. We've talked about it several times on the show. Billy Bowman, Danny Stutzman, Ethan Downs is another guy that you can throw into that mix, someone who finished the season strong. I do think that those guys having a year of experience as starters under the belt, you can throw Reggie Grimes in the mix as well. I mean, it was really his first opportunity to play significant snaps for the Sooners defense this past year. And you know, started the season strong, didn't really continue his play from non-conference play, but you know, he's got something to build on. Same with Ethan Downs, same with Jordan Kelly, Isaiah Coe. A lot of guys that played a lot of significant roles for this team are going to be required to play a lot more. And I do think the transfer portal additions are going to help a lot. I mean, Deshaun McCullough, we've talked about a ton. This is a guy that's got the athleticism. He's got, you know, the wherewithal, being a coach's kid, to be able to come in and make a big impact. You know, as the Cheetah, he's going to be asked to do a lot of different things. Now, it might be one of those situations where they kind of rotate the Cheetahs early, help somebody kind of get their feet under them a little bit, have a better understanding of what they're trying to do, and kind of play matchups and play situational football at the position. But if there's a guy that's got all the tools that Brent Venables is looking for in a Cheetah, it's Deshaun McCullough. Like, the guy can rush the passer. He can drop into coverage based on his experience as a safety in high school. He's got the athleticism. He's going to be able to play with range. So there's a lot to like about him. We've talked about Rondo Bothroyd, a ton of production, 13 and a half sacks at Wake Forest over the last 2 years. Sorry, 13 sacks, 24 and a half tackles for losses, 90 total tackles over the last 2 years. That's really good production for a guy that plays, strong side defensive end can play in a 3-man alignment, a 4-man alignment, can play defensive tackle on pass rushing downs. A lot to like there. And then you got another veteran in Jacob Lacey who spent some time at Notre Dame. You got another one in Devon Sears who had, a really good season at Texas State, was being pursued by Tennessee and Penn State. So there's a lot to like about this transfer portal class on the defensive side of the ball. But I think in addition to that, you hope that all of your guys that played significant roles for you last year are going to be more comfortable in the defense. With that experience now are going to be able to make a step and take a step forward, because it's going to take everybody. It can't just be one or two guys. It can't just be McCullough and Bothroyd coming in and making a huge impact, or Trace Ford. It's got to be the totality of the defense. All the 2022 signees, they got to be better. They've got to be, significantly impacting the game. Kobe McKenzie, Jaron Kanik, Gentry Williams, Robert Spears Jennings, Grayson Halton, those dudes, R. Mason Thomas. Again, the guy I always seem to forget about, but also the guy that I'm really most hyped about. All those guys have to improve their game, because it's going to take a top to bottom approach on the defensive depth chart for everything to be better defensively.
And it starts up front. It starts up front. And that's why, again, I think a lot of this always comes back to the transfer portal conversation with Oklahoma, because again, you did get Bothroyd, you did get Ford, you did get Sears, you did get Lacey. What does all of that mean in conjunction with what you already have on campus and the players, again, that I know, I hear you, they're only freshmen. Stop it. The verve, we were only freshmen. Don't get caught up in the hype. But there might be a player or two there that can impact things even as a freshman, a la in R. Mason Thomas. So we did see a little bit of that last season for Oklahoma. So how does all of that come together for Oklahoma? Let me ask you this. I feel like I've got an idea of how you feel in terms of this question with wide receiver. I think that you feel like, hey, get my stars on the field, though. At times we've gone back and forth with, okay, there's only so many catches for the top 4 wide receivers, on and on and on, right? Defensive line, to me, John, seems like the one position group. And for some reason, we do this with the defensive line, but you rarely hear this conversation point with offensive lines, I feel like. How big are you in the idea? How much stock do you put into the idea of, okay, I want a defensive line rotation? Or are you more of the mind, look, I've got 4, 5, 6 guys that I really, really like, and they should be getting the bulk of the snaps? Where do you fall on that spectrum of philosophical belief?
I think in a best case scenario, you're playing 5, 6 guys and they're playing a big chunk of your snaps. Now, given how many snaps the defense was on the field last year, you might have had to been deeper. Like you might have to play 8, 9 guys on your defensive line, just because you're playing, 1,000 snaps defensively, something like that. So, some games you're playing 90 snaps, 100 snaps. You got to have a good, solid rotation to keep everybody fresh. Otherwise, your efficiency, your execution is just going to drop off. Now, I would like to see them have a group of 4 guys that they feel confident they can put in any situation, crunch time, big time third down that comes up, that you want to be able to roll out your best 4, that you have a very strong idea about who that is. But I think it is going to be a little bit situational dependent, because, you look at a guy like Ethan Downs, like he's a really good, every down defensive end. He might not be your best pass rushing defensive end, but he can rush the passer. But you're going to be able to put him out there in all situations, because you get good pass rush ability from him, but he also plays the run really, really well. But maybe a guy like R. Mason Thomas, like if it's a 3rd and 12 or like a 3rd and 8, and it's a pass rushing down, maybe you throw R. Mason in instead of Ethan Downs, and you just get more juice off the edge. Same could be said for maybe Adepoju Adebare. Like, this is a guy that he's going to have some skill right off the bat, and he's a very, very long and athletic and fast player. We're seeing his brother, from Northwestern get huge, amount of buzz right now for the first round of the NFL draft. And I mean, Miguel Chavis was glowing about the kid. He said he comes from the same stock, and you just kind of listen to the guy talk, and he's about that work. Like, that's what he's about. And so I have no doubt in my mind that he's going to be mentally and physically ready to actually contribute in the fall. Now, how much are they going to put him out there and expose him early? That's going to be a bit of a question. But I mean, I think there are guys that they can put out there situationally and get a little bit more juice. But because of the way this team wants to play defensively, they want to play in 3-man alignments, 4-man alignments. They want to, move guys from the inside to outside, vice versa, like a Ronald Bothroyd. They want to be able to play him in multiple spots. They want to be able to play. I think they want to probably play Ethan Downs in multiple spots to be able to play him inside and outside too. So you could look at a situation where it's 3rd and long, and you've got your interior defensive line players are Ethan Downs, Rondo Bothroyd, and then you're looking at an edge, your edge guys, maybe R. Mason Thomas and Adepoju. Maybe you're talking about Reggie Grimes. Like, you're getting a little bit more speed off the edge if you're throwing R. Mason out there. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I would like to see like a solid 4 dudes that I feel like, okay, any situation I can throw them out there, especially a big time 3rd and 8, and we can get pressure and we can disrupt the passing game. But I think because of just the nature of college football now, and the way that they want to have a versatile defense, you got to have a pretty deep defensive line group, because it is very much situational dependent and, somewhat scheme dependent a little bit, who's going to be out there in certain circumstances. I mean, you're not going to necessarily play R. Mason as your, defensive end in a 3-man front. He just doesn't have the size right now to do that. Whereas, Ethan Downs, Rondo Bothroyd, they're ready to go as 3-4 ends, 4-3 ends, 4-3 interior players in pass rushing situations. So a lot of it's situational.
No, that's a good point. And I think not being married to the idea that we have to have 2 traditional defensive tackles and 2 edge rush defensive end types, however you want to describe the position out there. I think it's okay in a 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, toss 4 edge rushers out there and let them go pin their ears back and go get the passers. So,
but you also have to have those legit defensive tackle types, interior defensive line types, to help get you into those 3rd and long situations where this team wasn't good enough this past year because they didn't have the guys in the interior to stop the run consistently enough to force teams into those situations. So, I mean, it's a big year for guys like Jordan Kelly, Isaiah Coe, Jacob Lacey, Davin Sears, Grayson Halton. We need those dudes to step up and be significant impact players, because that's a little bit of where the weakness was in Oklahoma's defensive front last year, is they just weren't consistent enough stopping the run. Yeah, they got a lot of tackles for a loss. Yeah, a lot of sacks. Our guy Shan Jayaraja mentions that. Like, they were getting the splash plays, but it was also like, then they would give up a big 7-yard run, or they'd give up a big 3rd down. So, they'd get them into 3rd down situations a lot, but they wouldn't be able to get off the field. So again, it comes back to, it takes all of it. Every piece of it has to get better defensively for the Oklahoma Sooners, from the front to the back, in my mind.
Well, and just in closing on this topic for Oklahoma defensively, generally speaking, I think you and I are like-minded here. 6 that you feel really, really good about, and probably 8 that get the majority of the snaps over the course of a season. 6 that I really, really trust in about any situation, and 8 maybe get legitimate snaps over the course of a year. That's kind of what I think with the defensive line rotation. And so, having said that, you think about the transfer portal additions, John. To me, how many of those guys then does it take to get to that 6 number, to get to that 8 number? Is it all of those defensive line additions out of the portal, or can it be we hit on either Bothroyd or Ford, we hit on either Sears or Lacey? I'm hopeful that it can be the latter instead of the former.
Yeah, to me, it's got to be the interior guys. Like Jacob Lacey, like, he was okay at Notre Dame. I got to see the kid that was a 4-star show up and be really, really good for this team. I think I like what we've got in Jordan Kelly and Isaiah Coe. I think they're ascending players. They got their first big, significant runs at the interior defensive line last year, and they were productive. They played really well, but I need to see them take a step. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see because I don't know necessarily where Jacob Lacey and Davin Sears fall in the defensive, the interior defensive line rotation. I do feel pretty good about, and we might see a lot more Rondo Bothroyd there than I realize, because he's bulking up, he's getting bigger, but I feel good about him having an impact because he did at Wake Forest. If you can have an impact at Wake Forest, you're probably going to be able to have an impact at Oklahoma. I feel good about Trace Ford. I mean, he had the injury 2 seasons ago, kind of fell out of favor a little bit this past year, but those first 2 years at Oklahoma State were really good, productive years for the former Cowboys. So I feel good about him, and maybe in like a rotational role for him, you're able to amplify what he can do well. And that's get after the passer. So I do feel good about the edge additions. It's going to be the interior defensive line that if they can raise their game to be better than, Jeffrey Johnson and Jalen Redmond and, Isaiah Coe and Jordan Kelly were a year ago, if that can step up a little bit, I think it helps everybody out a lot more. And I keep forgetting about Jonah Lula. Like, he's still around, I forgot. I figured he was, graduated out, but no, he's still around. And that's another dude that you can plug and play, outside, inside, given the situation. And I think he can be effective rusher for you on the interior as well. So just a lot of options for Todd Bates and Miguel Chavis to work with in this defense. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. We got to look at a wide receiver that is now all of a sudden on Oklahoma's radar, or been on Oklahoma's radar, but now the buzz is kind of starting to catch up, and we're catching up to who he is. We'll talk about Isaiah McMorris out of Nebraska. But first, let me talk to y'all about Built Bar. It's the best tasting protein bar ever. If you haven't tried it, you've been missing out. It tastes great. It's great for you. Anywhere from 4 or 5 grams of carbs or sugars, low calorie, 130 to 170 calories, but you get 17, 18 grams of protein in something that's 100% covered in chocolate, and it tastes like a candy bar. Coconut almond, mint brownie, peanut butter brownie, some of my favorites. They've got Built Puffs, which are marshmallowy textured candy bar like protein bar. Like, you will love them. So go check it out, built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15, or you can find them at some Sam's and some Walmarts across the country as well. But your best case, just go to built.com. Again, use that promo code LOCKED15. You can get 15% off your next order over at built.com. So Josh, Isaiah McMorris, a wide receiver out of Bellevue, Nebraska, happens to be the place where current Oklahoma Sooners tight end Caden Helms hails from as well. So an interesting target. This kid's a 3-star wide receiver in the 2024 recruiting class. Got an offer from Oklahoma recently, and our guy Parker Thune over at OU Insider 247 Sports issued a crystal ball. I will add this little nugget as well. Parker's from Nebraska. He's got the inside track to Nebraska recruiting. He was in on Caden Helms long before Caden Helms committed, felt very confident that was going to be the case. So take that for what it's worth. I take it for a lot. So we watched the guy on Huddle. Josh, just give me your initial impressions of what you think of Isaiah McMorris.
Well, I like what Emmett Jones and Oklahoma potentially have found here. He's, if you're unfamiliar, 6 foot, 170 pounds about, and fast. Not total complete burner speed, but John, I think you and I both like the acceleration aspect here. I mean, catch and boom, one cut, gone, can, has some shake to him, can make guys miss. You see this ability to go up and high point the football on a highlight or two, which is good. You want to see that as well. In addition, so he's got it listed on his Huddle page, 4.47 40 guy. I after watching the film would say, to me, that checks out. 11-1 100-meter dash guy. I would say that part checks out. And then the vertical 36 is what the vertical is listed at. And I would say probably after watching him, that checks out. I mean, he just racked up a ton of numbers last season, 90 grabs. Let's just round up and call it 1,300 yards, 15 touches, was a first-team All-State kid. And, oh, by the way, he's a multiple sport athlete, which is not unusual either. He plays basketball and also is a track and field kid. So he's talented, man. Oklahoma got in on him at the turn of the year. Actually, a little bit after that, 24/7 Sports reports the offer as January 31st. So Oklahoma was a little bit behind the paces of a Texas Tech, a Kansas, a K-State, Penn State, Nebraska, Missouri, Iowa, Minnesota. But it sounds like Oklahoma's taking the lead here, John. And I really think this could be a valuable, talented addition to the wide receiver group in 2024.
I look at him and I think of him as a perfect Jeff Lebby wide receiver, because you watch his huddle and, man, he catches a ton of screen passes and he makes something happen with them after the catch. What does Jeff Lebby love to do? Sometimes, to my consternation, run a ton of screen passes behind the line of scrimmage, asking his wide receivers to do something with the ball after the catch. So give me some Isaiah McMorris so that I don't have to have a heart attack after every single behind the line of scrimmage pass, because I want somebody who can take that and do something with it. And Isaiah McMorris can. He's a very, very good player. He looks like he could project as a slot. He can be an outside guy as well. He's got the size to play the outside, but it's his lateral agility and his quickness that gives me the play him in the slot and let's see what happens, because he's a well-versed route runner. And the other thing that I really liked that I saw in his huddle was just has an understanding of where the soft spots are in the zone and is able to feel that and sit down in zone coverage and make himself big for the quarterback. I mean, he's not running through zones and getting behind guys. He has a good understanding of the game. So that's a really, really good trait to see out of a junior in high school, a kid that has that awareness to him, that's able to read zone, find the spot, sit down, make the catch, make the play after the catch. So really, really like what I saw out of Isaiah McMorris. That in no way, takes them out of the Bryant Wesco race in my mind. I also think they're very high on Zion Kearney. They're looking to load up. They're not sitting back and, playing the numbers game. I mean, we're seeing what they're doing at running back. They just offered another running back in the 2024 cycle, a kid out of California, the number one running back out of California. So just a really fascinating. And Brent Venables has said this, he said, we're not going to live and die by the transfer portal forever. Yes, they've made big moves in the transfer portal the last 2 seasons, but I think he does want to get to that, that Dabo Swinney, style and that mentality where they're building their team through recruiting, and maybe they'll supplement it a little bit through the transfer portal. But I don't think we're going to see 2-3 years down the line where they're bringing in 8, 9, 10, 12 kids through the transfer portal to fill out significant needs. It's going to be one of those like, okay, we'll hit a guy here or there, we'll get them in and bring them in, but it's not going to be big transfer portal classes like we're seeing right now, because I do think they want to build through the recruiting class. And so that's why we're seeing them, heavily targeting 3 running backs in the 2024 cycle. We're looking at 3 wide receivers now. They've been in on, several tight ends, big offensive line classes. So, they took a big defensive back class in 2023. So it looks like they're just going to play the load up game.
No doubt. And probably that's what they're going to need to do. There's a really good chance that this is Jalil Farouk's final season in Norman. I mean,
the season I think he's going to have, then yeah, it will be.
Right. If he lives up to John's expectations, then there's, but I think that all of that is totally feasible too. I mean, he's going to be the number 1 guy. He's going to have, the bulk of the targets, I would imagine. And I think he's a heck of a wide receiver. So it's not inconceivable that he would think, okay, in next season with, 3rd round and above grade, and then that's enough to say, hey, I'm ready to go to the National Football League. So probably, yes, it's time to load up on some wide receivers, and who knows what is going to happen between now and the end of next season. You want everybody to stay on board, but it's not the worst thing to, pull in, I would say, John, at especially a position like wide receiver, where if I'm not getting the football thrown my way or I'm not getting snaps, probably I'm going somewhere else, because somebody's always telling me, hey, we're going to throw the football to you. We'd love how you'd look in our offense. So to me, wide receiver is a position that probably most classes you want 3 and maybe even 4 at times. So to me, yeah, you look at some of the other names that you mentioned that are on the board. Wesco. Who was the other name you mentioned for Oklahoma?
Zion Kearney.
Kearney, yes, we've seen linked to Oklahoma. So even if you get both of those guys, I mean, to me, there's no reason not to get a tailor-made slot receiver like Isaiah McMorris.
Yeah, they're going to have options in the wide receiver class, just like they do in the running back class, because people are going to want to play in a high paced, high total, play total offense. It's going to give them a lot of opportunities to make plays in the passing game. Turning our attention real quick to softball. We'll dig into softball more on our live show on Monday night, 9 p.m. Central Time here on Locked On Sooners on the YouTube side. But Josh, what a weekend it was for Oklahoma softball, man. Just all the drama, the fireworks, big wins, come from behind wins. Just what an incredible weekend.
Well, and it was that come from behind win that I think probably electrified everybody the most. Look, run rule victories are great and winning convincingly is great. And it felt nice to do that after some pointed remarks from one Texas skipper going into this series. But again, for Oklahoma to show us that ability, anytime you think that the chips are down, the Sooners more often than not find a way to win those types of ball games. And I thought that was probably, again, the biggest takeaway of the weekend, John, was we saw it again.
Yeah, absolutely clutch. Riley Boone, she gets the leadoff single to start the inning, and Jada Coleman wastes no time, hitting the 2-run bomb to tie it at 3. And I think probably if you're like me, Sooners fans, once that happened, you pretty much knew Oklahoma was going to win that ball game. Texas gave them life. They gave them a second chance, and Oklahoma came through just that inning. They ended up loading the bases. Kinsey Hansen comes through again, clutch against Texas. And just, man, she's just on fire. Everybody, there's a lot of players on fire. Tiara Jennings right now, she had a big game 1, a big game 3. I think I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like she's got 3-4 RBI games in her last 5. She's got 5 home runs in her last 8. She's all of a sudden up to 39 home runs to lead, 39 RBIs to lead the team. She's got 9 home runs to tie with Jada Coleman. So your top 2 home run hitters are your number 1 and number 2 hitters in the lineup. Just a great display. Grace Lyons, she had the error that allowed a run early, but she bounced back with a huge play, snatching one with the glove and then flipping it with the glove to save another run and get them out of the inning in one at bat. And just everybody was so good. Alyssa Brito continues to be really, really good. Grace Lyons, I mentioned. Kinsey Hansen again coming up with big hits. Sydney Sanders, had the walk-off hit today, but she had her first 2-hit game in more than a month. So if she can start kind of getting going, that's just another big weapon. Avery Hodge ran the bases well, just all around. It was just a really, really solid weekend. And you come away with the sweep over Texas, which is always a plus.
Well, and then just the weekend as a whole for Sooner athletics. It didn't get off to the start and didn't finish the way that I know folks were hopeful that it would for Oklahoma baseball. But, man, for a team that was in an absolute tailspin after that opening loss in this 4-game set to Stanford, for them to come back and win the couple of games that they did, I think is potentially season-altering for Oklahoma. So that was a notable occurrence from the weekend. That was for OU. And how about women's tennis? Takes down number 10 Iowa State. And then I would be remiss. Huge. And I would be remiss if I didn't give love to KJ Kindler and the women's gymnastics program once again off to the women's gym NCAA championships. But again, that's from the realm of not surprising at all, but only because they've won championships and made it not surprising. So a great weekend really overall for Sooner athletics.
Yeah. If Oklahoma softball is not the most dominant, team on campus, it's OU women's gym. They're just phenomenal. And, Jordan Bowers just had a fantastic Friday night, just pulling in multiple perfect scores. I was like saving every tweet I could, sending it to my wife because my daughter's in gymnastics now. I'm like, check this one out. This one's awesome. Just girl dadding. But no, just a great weekend for Oklahoma athletics. Again, we'll dig into more of this on our live show on Monday night, 9 p.m. Central Time on the Locked On Sooners YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to that show so you can be a part of the chat where we got a lot of good folks that just in there talking Oklahoma sports. So be a part of that. But until then, he's Josh Helmer. Follow him on Twitter at JoshOnRef. I'm John Williams. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. The show is at Locked On Sooners. But until next time, Boomer Sooner.